Good afternoon. My name is Lindita, SIRRI, and I will be presenting my thesis titled The Resilience of Host Country Nationals, HCNs in Multicultural Work Context. I would like to start by thanking the panel for giving me this opportunity today. About the author, when I started my DBA studies, I was working as a contract manager for a multinational company in Bahrain. Opportunity came up and I moved to the States working for the White House contracting office. But now, currently, I'm back in the Kingdom of Bahrain working on a US Navy base in contracting field. This is the agenda for today. And I approached this in the topic of resilience because I am a foreign national and my hosts at the time, when I started this thesis, made me think that I had to use a lot of resilience in my role, but I assumed that my hosts also had to garner lots of resilience just to work with me and people like me. When I started this thesis, I was a guest. I am a manager, but I was a guest in a multinational organization living in a country in which I was a foreign national, and I was very aware of that. Persistence and resilience only come from having been given the chance to work throughout the difficult problems. So it got me wondering about the people who had to deal with me as a problem. An HCN is an employee who is a citizen of a country in which an organization's branch or plant is located, but the organization is headquartered in another country. And it got me thinking, I had to use a lot of resilience. I consider myself to be a resilient person. And I wondered about the resilience of HCNs. Resiliency describes people who have overcome adversity through self-efficacy. And I started thinking about the adversity that my hosts were experiencing. Resilience is a very popular concept due to the desire of injecting hope and optimism into the story of adversity. And therefore, I set out to explore the resilience of HCNs in multicultural context. I wanted to explore to what extent do host country nationals need to leverage resilience in order to develop positive attitude toward and positive relationships with foreign nationals in multicultural work context. I needed to leverage a lot of resilience to work with HCNs, and I me or people like me, foreign nationals in a multicultural work context. I conducted literature review to see if I can answer my where does it come from, antecedents, and how it is relevant in a workplace setting. So I found
Oops. Hello?
Oh, yes, it seems like Lindita has dropped.
We lost her.
She's back.
Hi, Lindita. Seems that you disappeared for a few seconds. You can share your screen again. You're muted. Lindita? Okay.
Is it okay now?
We hear you, but we don't see the screen.
Could you please just stop sharing?
Okay,
okay,
yes.
It's working. Perfect.
Great.
Okay.
You were talking about the antecedents when we lost you.
So I conducted literature review to see if I can answer my research question. And so these are some of the studies I found. Resilience is the capability of strained body to recover its size after deformation caused by stress. But studies also suggested that the principal antecedents of resilience are stress and adversity. Also, resilience at work is mostly related to job satisfaction, organization commitment, and productivity. We continued with literature regarding outcomes associated with resilient employees, relationship between resilience, stress, and other constructs, and stress and resilience in cross-cultural context. Positive psychology and positive organizational behavior suggested that resilience has an impact on desired work related employee outcomes. Resilient individuals would be better at handling high levels of job stress. Resilience to stress meant that employees can respond productively when faced with pressure in a
Okay. You're muted, Lindita, you're muted. Okay. Okay. Now we hear you.
Okay. How do I do it?
Don't worry. Share again the screen. It happens. We know that connections are unstable. So,
Lindita, maybe it would be better if you deactivate your cam.
Yeah, it could be an idea. So,
Activate my cam. Okay. Okay.
Yep. I stopped my cam as well, so maybe we
Thank you.
Less resources.
Yeah. So resilience to stress means that employees can respond productively when faced with pressure to achieve outcomes. Finally, we reviewed literature addressing resilience in expatriates, but when we searched for resilience in HCNs, we didn't find much or none. So that this way we identified a gap in the present literature. Potosky 2016 comes close because it talks about how everyone has to adjust. Working in multicultural context is disorienting, but still does not directly look at the adjustments of HCNs. As we see, it is obvious that the list of studies gets shorter and shorter as we get closer to resilience and HCNs. Stress affects the outcomes we have identified, but so does resilience. So theoretically, resilience and stress are related, but resilience moderates the relationship between stress and outcomes. Stress doesn't lead to resilience, but certainly triggers it. The literature, though, is not really clear on this point. People who encounter stress, they may develop resilience, but it's not necessarily the cause of resilience. We did not craft formal hypotheses. However, we did develop several propositions based upon research on expatriates and resilience. Our first propositions is divided in two sub-propositions. Working with foreign nationals prompt HCNs to experience stressors that require resilience, and resilience moderate the negative impact of workplace stress on work-related outcomes. Proposition 2, 3, and 4 propose that HCN's resilience will positively relate to job satisfaction, work, organization commitment, and productivity. We designed our propositions using the framework, and this figure represents just that. And here is our conceptual framework with propositions added. So another way of looking at what we set out to do is we wanted to look at the relationships between resilience and job outcomes, but we knew that stressors in the workplace would have an impact on this relationship. Then, just as we were about to select the data, the COVID pandemic happened, and we knew that that would also be a stressor. The inner circle, the gray inner circle, reflects what we set out to do, but we had to take into consideration the COVID pandemic as another contextual factor, and that is expressed with a red square. So for data collection, we used mixed method approach. Phase 1, we distributed questionnaire. Phase 2, we conducted interviews. 2 main groups of participants were selected for our study. Surveys where we collected data from 3 groups, and that is, we divided in 2 main groups, undergraduate university students and employees. But employees were further divided into employees working in private sector and the one working for the public sector. Whereas for interviews, we also planned to do the same. However, under the circumstances, we only were able to interview employees working in the private sector. We developed measures of resilience, stress, job satisfaction, organization commitment, job performance, productivity, and sense of belonging. And but if we found that measures were available from other studies, we used them, and we had scales for all these constructs. We included all the scales and the measures. So we measured them as generalized for each construct, specific to working with foreigners, and also we added questions about COVID-19. This slide and the following one are the describe in details our quantitative analysis. As we were measuring the correlations between variables, we here are expressing the findings of our correlation and their significance. Although we anticipated that working with foreigners increases the person's work-related stress, our sub-proposition 1A was not supported quantitatively nor qualitatively. However, the sub-proposition 1B was supported quantitatively, but not qualitatively. Proposition 2, 3, and 4 were well supported, but the average job satisfaction of HCNs working in private sector was not different from the ones from the non-citizens, which was an interesting factor. And resilience of HCNs working with foreigners was significantly and positively correlated to organizational commitment. More resilient respondents were more satisfied, more committed, and more productive. Additional findings, we had the opportunity to explore some other aspects of our data. So here we present that resilient respondents were better, performed better, felt stronger about their organization, but respondents' stress did not increase during COVID. However, more resilient respondents were less resilient. So it affected negatively their resilience. And we also found that job satisfaction, organization commitment, and performance were not affected by COVID. However, productivity was negatively affected. Research contribution. Our first contribution to research is that stress level at work is not specifically due to working with foreigners. The different groups of HCNs who studied or worked with foreigners were more stressed than non-HCNs. Stress does not cause resilience. However, greater resilience is associated with lower levels of stress. As we predicted, general resilience and generalized stress were significantly and negatively related. Even though our proposition was partially supported, we found that the relationship between interacting with foreigners, stress, and resilience is not as precisely defined as we expected. And the last contribution to research is that we must develop and test propositions in this area. Our findings prompt evaluation of the assumptions about the sources of stress that our study participant experienced. And working with foreigners does not increase HCN's stress, but resilience is a positive response to stressful events. And it may not be possible to categorize resilience as a response to different types or levels of stress. Overall, we found that resilient respondents are less stressed, more satisfied, and more committed. University officials and senior managers should prepare HCN students and employees for working with foreign nationals. Our research findings add multinational corporation leaders and managers to operate more effectively while working in host countries. It is advisable that managers take into account the stress in employees' work context. By understanding the impact of resilience, managers can improve their managerial skills. Overall, our results provide practical insights for HCNs, expats, business leaders, and managers in multinational corporations. Now that we learn how important the HCN resilience across cultures is, we all should nurture and promote it. First limitation was we thought of was the fact that the author, I am an expat. So, but we wondered if participants also did not wanted to admit to that they were stressed or didn't trust the survey process, or if we failed to take into account something important. Originally, our interview settings were scheduled face-to-face, but due to COVID, we had to change. The reason why COVID is one of our limits is that during that period, foreigners went home, people were isolated or working from home, and interacting with foreigners meant something different from before COVID. Even though we did not find what we expected, we did finish what we set out to accomplish. In general, employees are committed to organizations when they feel that they belong to that organization. And resilient employees who are less stressed and more satisfied perform better. We found that HCNs and their perspectives are as important as expats and their perspectives. Overall, HCNs in our study were comfortable working with foreign nationals. Because we didn't have the chance to conduct interviews with students and non-private sector employees, interviewing these groups could be an opportunity for future research. Interviewing HCNs of different backgrounds also it's a good an interesting factor, and study in different groups from the one we did can be an opportunity. Increasing the number of international students would positively help student outcomes. Universities may introduce courses related to multicultural awareness, study abroad programs to different countries. And for private multinational organizations, they may improve training on building resilience, better understand the cultures of their colleagues, and organizing more workshops. Companies ought to senior management must analyze the HCN sense of belonging Multinational corporation may evaluate the relationship between resilience, stress, and sense of belonging. They should establish some suggestion boxes, and important, they should also prevent creation of expat groups of same nationality in the management, which may create conflict. Companies ought to train staff to increase resilience, and by doing that, they increase job satisfaction, organization commitment, and productivity. HCN psychological resilience was essential aspect, especially during COVID, and we searched to understand HCNs in interpretation of challenge, adaptation, experience in cross-cultural context. Thank you.